If there's one thing every gamer can agree on, it's that PlayStation has absolutely killed it with exclusives. They have not only produced great sequels and reboots, but even created a mass amount of impeccable new IPs that will surely lead to even better sequels. While PlayStation started off rough with Killzone Shadowfall and Knack, they've now become an industry leader in quality original games. With games like Bloodborne, Spider-Man, God of War, and Horizon Zero Dawn, Sony has been on a non-stop win streak, and now they've released their newest original IP to try and solidify that victory, as we get ready to embrace the next generation of consoles. Now, making this video really does bring up mixed feelings in me. On one hand, I'm incredibly thrilled with Kojima's new game Death Stranding, but on the other hand, as a die-hard Xbox fan, Xbox has been my favorite place to play games. But this generation, the Xbox hasn't really had that many great exclusives, and that common saying that all Xbox has is Gears, Halo, and Forza is mostly true. The platform and console itself are amazing, and Game Pass is simply some of the best value on the market, but in terms of what matters most of gaming consoles, the actual games, Xbox has failed. And while part of me doesn't want to admit it, it's simply the honest truth. PlayStation has continually dominated the Xbox this generation and provided I and consumers with some truly great games. And their newest killer app, Death Stranding, is finally here. While this may not be the best PlayStation game, it certainly is one of the most unique ones, and a game that I'm thankful to have experienced. The game has also seemingly divided the internet, with some reviewers giving the game average to slightly below average scores, and other YouTubers claiming it's a flawless masterpiece. Well, as a gamer who loves almost every type of game, and someone who has been an Xbox guy for a long time, I actually really enjoyed Death Stranding. This game is absolutely soaked of Kojima's aesthetic, from its evocative not quite English terminology, to its willingness to break the fourth wall, and baffle your expectations. And yes, there are a lot of cutscenes in Death Stranding, all directed of Kojima's distinctive, less than subtle flair. However, there's also an absurd amount of walking in this game, and combining these mundane and boring missions with some extremely odd game mechanics certainly will turn a lot of people off. But the world, atmosphere, characters, and of course the music, all make this game one that I actually think is worth experiencing. So to find out if you might like spending dozens of hours in this world or not, let's begin the review. And as always, timestamps are down in the description. With that said, let's look into the first aspect that people will take notice of, the visuals. Death Stranding is a gorgeous game, plain and simple. Almost all of PlayStation's exclusives, such as God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn, have been beautiful, but Death Stranding might be one of the best looking games this generation, and possibly raise the bar. Even though you trudge around all kinds of isolated mountains and rocky environments for dozens of hours, it benefits from one crucial factor: the visuals. The graphics in this game make walking and climbing not just bearable, but actually even enjoyable at times. Death Stranding uses a modified version of the Decima engine, which Guerrilla Games used to make Horizon Zero Dawn, another gorgeous game, and it's easy to see why Kojima would choose this engine. The environmental artists have crafted a wide range of rock formations and other assets to create a natural procedural landscape. Every piece of this landscape is intricately detailed, from rock formations that fill the landscape to the stone fields at the base of mountains. Everything in this game is profoundly beautiful, and when you see just how much detail has been put into each stone by rivers and lake beds, it truly is breathtaking. The same level of care has also been transitioned to just about everything else, with blades of grass moving accurately to your character, the sky and clouds containing realistic thickness for absorbing and scattering light, the rain producing reactive droplets and applying a wet shader to everything it touches, mud and snow deforming beneath your feet and leaving behind proper trails. All these factors combine in harmony to truly bring to life a gorgeous and dark world. Moving on from the environmental details, we have the character models, and yet even in an era where most games all have incredible character modeling and rendering, this game goes above and beyond once more. The quality of eyes, the shading and natural airs of skin layers, the glistening of light and hair, and the excruciating detail in every bit of fabric and clothing all make these characters look incredibly lifelike. And when the emotion, drama, and mystery from certain scenes kick in, you feel more like you're watching a multi-million-dollar movie. Red Dead Redemption 2 and God of War now have a new competitor for being the best-looking console game. Thankfully, combining these stellar visuals is an equally impressive soundtrack. One aspect of games that's almost never talked about or discussed is the game's audio design and the music. The audio design here is great and fits the world design perfectly. Hearing the sounds of BTs approaching and your audio deck sensor attempting to warn you of danger for the first time truly is a terrifying experience. While the audio design is splendid, the part that really pulled me in and caught my ears immediately was the game's incredible soundtrack. The soundtrack of Death Stranding sounds like a mix of a modern take on 1980s electro music with some occasional vocals added in. And honestly, it's a damn masterpiece. I haven't bought or listened to a game's soundtrack as fast as this since Halo. The music here is not only diverse and visceral in its uses, but even just pleasant to listen to. Every single song fits perfectly, and the opening themes, character tracks,
television shows, some very interesting short films, and stories. Everything consumable within a 21-minute window.
and even the action music is amazing. I've always been a person that really appreciates the artistic value in games. And like I previously mentioned, walking around in this game can be dull, but when you have incredible vistas spewing a dark ambience and in parallel to some of the best music I've heard in recent years, those moments can actually be enjoyable, as you truly feel isolated in this odd world. A world filled to the brim with mystery, despair, and a once-in-a-generation story. Now this is the aspect of the review that could contain the most spoilers, so just like I stated before, I won't explain or talk about anything that hasn't already been shown off in the trailers or some mild interviews, so don't worry. If you want to go into this game as confused and mystified as I was, you'll still be able to after watching this. Now in the beginning, you'll easily get overwhelmed with story exposition and tons of cutscenes, with weird characters all making everything sound overly metaphorical. But all you really need to know is you play as Sam Porter Bridges, played by the beloved Norman Reedus, who is now a post-apocalypse mailman who sports both a personal robotic radar and a baby in a yellow pod to help guide you through treacherous terrain and away from weird monstrous creatures, as you complete your deliveries from one city to the next, where you try and earn the trust of citizens, which is all part of a plan to bring them back online in the government's chiral network, after a catastrophic event called the Death Stranding took place.
We convinced community after community to join the UCA, and we left behind our own people to help them. It took us 3 years, but we managed to make it all the way to Edge Knot City.
All the way to the Pacific. Jesus.
Yeah, but then everything went to hell.
Throughout this journey, you also meet a star-studded cast, including Mads Mikkelsen, Lindsay Wagner, Margaret Qualley, Tommy Earl Jenkins, and of course, Troy Baker. There's also many other famous cameos that I won't spoil here. But just know this cast really is expensive enough to compete with some of the greatest pictures on the silver screen. Looking past the stars of the game is a surprisingly deep theme of human connection. Each character has their own perspectives on death that all pull together into the theme of the human experience. The story may go over the heads of certain players, as the very existence and purpose of human life is constantly brought into question. But for those players like myself, who like delving into these deep philosophical questions and pondering on those serious topics, I think the story will be one that sticks with you for years to come. Also, one part of the game that I didn't expect to actually care about is the BBs. Those are those babies that we see in their yellow pods. And from trailers, we've already learned they're not real babies, and instead should be treated solely as equipment used to detect the dangerous BTs. But this is the part that will bring out the player's own humanity, as they act like real babies and serve as a constant reminder that the future is counting on you. Now, I've seen comments say that the story and world are interesting enough to be a movie or TV series, and in fact, maybe should have taken that form of medium due to its sluggish gameplay. Well, while I've already said the gameplay isn't too bad but can get repetitive, let's see if it would appeal to you. Death Stranding has been called dead walking by some, and in all honesty I can see why. The majority of the gameplay loop is literally the fetch quest design that most players hate in open world games. The amount of time simply going from point A to point B is laughably bad, and there's not even an attempt to hide that since you're literally a mailman. You'll start off in the early game with little equipment and upgrades, and dealing with the game's realistic terrain, weight, and momentum physics, while impressive, will more than likely frustrate the majority of players and cause most to stop playing before things actually improve. However, once you learn to use some helpful player-made objects, craft vehicles, and get to use some floating cargo carriers, the gameplay loop becomes a little more bearable. Besides having to combat in the environment, the combat will mostly revolve around enemies, such as BTs and other human NPCs. You'll have to approach these guys stealthily early on, but can eventually engage them more aggressively through some truly odd weaponry that only Kojima could think of. Encountering these challenges the first couple of times really is interesting and captivating, and the lead up to some of these fights and boss encounters are just as impressive visually as they are creatively. There are a lot of upgrades to unlock, tons of equipment and resources to craft, and a lot of ways towards the end of the game to deal with enemies. But overall, I would have to agree that even though I like the gameplay loop mostly, it just seems like the game could have greatly benefited from another year of development to properly incorporate a variety of mission designs and to make them more exciting and engaging for the average player. Because right now there are some truly great missions and moments, but so much of this game is overshadowed by the redundancy of the gameplay, which truly is a shame, because I think more players should experience this game. But hey, if they don't like it due to this game not being fun to play, well, I can't blame them. This game really does feel like a chore at times, but even then, everything else was thrilling enough to keep me playing all the way to the end. Death Stranding is yet another fascinating and intriguing new IP from PlayStation, and one that will certainly be one of the most talked about games this generation, with the universally acclaimed and praised Kojima free of his past evil employer and now free to do what he wants under the rule of PlayStation with a seemingly blank check. It really is impressive what he's done in just a couple of years. Death Stranding certainly fumbles at times, but it soars at others, and during those moments of brilliance is when the game truly shines. If you're someone who enjoys convoluted and mysterious stories that take place in a painstakingly detailed world with lore like no other, backed by photorealistic graphics and a damn good soundtrack, well, this is the game for you. If you're someone though who prioritizes gameplay above all else and wants games to be more action-packed or expect this game to play more like the usual open world games, well, I don't think you'll enjoy this adventure. However, this game is very much for me, and while I used to be a die-hard Xbox fan, I can happily say this game is another great addition to PlayStation's already stellar lineup. Now, this game probably won't be as popular as God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, Bloodborne, and Spider-Man, but I really do think it is one worth experiencing, which is why I can happily give Death Stranding a 7.5 out of 10. The only thing holding it back for me is the gameplay, but looking past that, I did enjoy my time in one of Kojima's truly odd worlds, and I can't wait to see what he and Sony do next. Well, that wraps up this review of Death Stranding and my personal take on the game. So let me know your thoughts on the video and the game down in the comments, and as always, my Twitter account and Patreon are linked down below. And this video is made in part thanks to the generous support from Shane Cruz. With that said, let's chat down in the comments, and if you like this video and want to see more like it, be sure to leave a like, share the video, and hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you all on the next Shepherd Gaming video. Kilo Salai.